stories for you, and let me tell you, the third one is a ride. It is pretty mental. So if you do fall asleep during the first or second one, be sure to come back to this video for the third story because it is crazy. I'll put all the links and credits in the description as well as timestamps if you do lose your place. But let's get started. Our first story is titled, I taught my dog to use talking buttons. What she told me terrified me. And this is from Let's Split Up. My dog, Cookie, is a high-energy papillon mix with big furry ears and tufts of long fur. And when I first adopted her, I almost returned her because for the first 3 days she wouldn't stop crying. Now of course she is my baby. One thing that helped a lot with her energy levels and her constant boredom was the buttons. I'm sure you've seen them. Those buttons you record with your voice the dogs can press to say things like food or play or outside. Some people even train their cats with them. Cookie is up to 20 buttons. Sometimes she'll hit nonsense sequences, of course, and she seems to think ouch is a reaction to surprise. Also, I'm not sure if she grasps the emotions mad, sad, and love you. Though on days when I'm curled up on my sofa crying from the stress at work, she hits love you, and of course I want to believe she knows what it means. Even if she doesn't, it makes me feel better. Even though she's imperfect in talking with her paws, Cookie is well trained and intentional, at least with her most tangible wants like outside and food. Though I'll admit, it's annoying to be woken in the middle of the night with demands for food, food, food. Anyway, one night I was woken by the sound of my recorded voice from the living room. Stranger. This was followed by the pattering of Cookie's little paws, followed by stranger outside. I admit my heart skipped a beat. I lay in bed huddled under the blankets, reluctant to get up and investigate. For a long while, holding my breath, I lay there in silence. I listened to the dog's footsteps meander around in the main room. Finally, she pressed food a few times before coming back into the bedroom and curling up in her bed by the nightstand. In the morning, I checked around outside the house, but found no traces of anything unusual. I also did a Google search and laughed when I realised how many people have been spooked by their pets pressing stranger. I creeped myself out with a story in the Daily Mirror of a woman whose dog pressed cold stranger. According to the article, the woman was spooked by her dog's warnings of this cold stranger in the corner of her living room. But in my case, Cookie wasn't warning me of any ghosts. One morning she hit stranger before running to the door and growling. This was a correct usage of the button, as a UPS driver was outside. When the doorbell rang, she actually barked, something she rarely does. Her hackles raised, tail down and ears flat. I had to apologise to the driver as I accepted the package, and Cookie kept rumbling, low and deep in her throat. I told her go away and she skulked off. Behind me somewhere I heard the button for stranger again. Sorry, I told the driver, who was laughing. She doesn't like strange men. She sounds smart then. Do those buttons actually work? He was intrigued. Outside. Yeah, she seems to know them pretty well, so... Food. Mad. Sometimes she presses them kinda randomly too, I admitted. Okay, well she sounds mad and wants some food. Have a good day. I don't know what Cookie's history was before being adopted, but she's always been leery of men, at least until they've case later that afternoon she pressed stranger again, and when I looked outside there was a turkey in our front yard. That's when it struck me. The other night Cookie must have seen a raccoon or some other animal that was a stranger to her. But then came the incident that made me rethink everything. I'd just come back from a visit with my parents, and as soon as Cookie and I walked in, her hackles raised. I was unloading bags when I heard, "Stranger, home." This sent a crawl of icy fingers at my spine. Cookie wasn't growling or barking, but she was unusually alert. "Stranger where?" I asked. When Cookie just looked at me, I repeated myself. She looked around the room and then she trotted off to wander through the kitchen, came back out and went down the hall to the bedroom, came back to me and wandered over to the buttons. Smell. God, the chills I felt then. Did this mean there was a lingering smell of some stranger? Could it have been a strange animal? A squirrel that got in through the window, maybe? Or the smell of something I brought in from outside? I went walking around the house. No signs of forced entry, though I do keep a key under a flower pot that anyone with half a brain and determination to break in could probably find. It's a safe neighbourhood, so I hadn't thought much of it. Now, though, I removed the key and decided I'd get a lockbox for the front door instead. After I found a footprint in the damp soil below the window, I also decided to install cameras. Cookie, meanwhile, had calmed down. When I came back inside, I found her camped beside the food button. But the real reason I swear by these buttons and how beneficial they can be is because of what happened the next week. I was doing some gardening and I heard my name called by Greg, my supervisor at work. He was out jogging and we struck up a conversation. He asked if he could have some water and I let him in for a drink. And as usual, Cookie was growling, tail tucked and ears back, just like with the delivery driver. I told her to go away and she backed off, though it wouldn't stop giving Greg the stink eye. He'd made himself at home in the armchair by the TV area and was remarking on what a nice place I have and asking, "Is it just you here?" When I heard my recorded voice from the living room, "Stranger, smell." Now the fact Greg had appeared on my street casually jogging up the sidewalk, well, it sent up some red flags. He'd always been a little creepy as a supervisor. Not enough to go to bring a complaint forward or anything, but enough that I felt awkward about seeing him on my street. So when Cookie pressed the button saying she smelled a stranger, it sent my pulse racing. Could this be the same stranger she smelled on the day I found the footprint outside the window? I told Greg I had to take her out for a quick potty break, and while outside I phoned a friend and asked them to pretend it was an emergency. I came back in with my friend shouting loudly enough on my phone for Greg to overhear, and I told him something had come up and I had to run. We both went outside and I locked up and got in my car, and waited until he was gone before I went back inside my house. I checked the cameras, wondering if I'd find evidence of him snooping around my house, but there was nothing. I assumed that my fears had been overblown, that maybe I'd freaked out at Greg unfairly, and Cookie had pressed those buttons because she didn't like men. But 2 days later, the cameras caught him. On a Saturday afternoon when my car was gone and I was obviously not home, Greg came strolling up my sidewalk. He looked around, seemingly trying to act casual, and then he went right to the potted plant, which he lifted, searching for the key. I felt nauseated system installed and informed my neighbours to be on the lookout. I did some extra button practice with Cookie to make sure she'd alert me if necessary. When I informed my boss, Greg was immediately let go. He sent me some expletive-filled, threatening emails and messages accusing me of ruining his life before I blocked him and filed a restraining order. That was all weeks ago. But the reason I'm writing about it now is because yesterday, Cookie hit the stranger button again. Of all the buttons, that one always got a reaction from me. I immediately got up and asked her, "Stranger, where?" She turned a circle and whined, and then pressed, "Home." That sent my pulse through the roof. I checked all through the house. No signs of intrusion, nothing on camera either. My fluttering heart slowed. "No stranger," I told her. She sulked and wandered away. She was out of sorts the rest of the evening. Then today, she hit the button again. "Mad," she pushed, and then, "Stranger, mad." It was nonsensical. I found myself trying to piece together meaning the way so many other owners do when their dogs use buttons in a way that doesn't make sense. Was she calling me a stranger because I haven't given her enough treats or pets lately? As in, don't be a stranger. But I knew that was a huge stretch. Was she saying she was mad because I wasn't listening to her about the stranger? Maybe. But there was no stranger. I checked everywhere, including the cameras. And then because that button in particular always got me extra freaked out, I looked up Greg, just to make sure he hadn't resumed stalking me. I went to his socials where it was clear from his recent posts he still definitely held a grudge. He'd made a bunch of rants blaming me for his life spiralling ever since his job loss. Other posts claimed he had nothing left to live for. But the part that chilled me to the core, I found his obituary. He ended his own life 2 days ago. Wow. That one was actually really scary because it kind of felt a lot like a Let's Not Meet story. Like, that could happen, and I've definitely read stories similar to that. You know, I'd probably just remove the stranger button altogether if it was freaking me out that much, but I guess from a security perspective it is pretty good. But that was great, and now she's getting haunted by Greg. Lovely. Our second story comes from Emma Watson but dumber. We know how good they are at writing stories, and it's called "Got an Ad to Play Find the Monster in the Room" game. And it keeps getting harder. It was a late Friday night and I was mindlessly playing chess on my laptop. I had the difficulty up and was leaning right into the game and squinting into the bright screen in a tense match with the robot. Didn't even notice that it was almost 2 AM. I didn't care. Back pain told me I'd been playing for hours. Again, didn't mind. After what seemed like an eternity, it beat me. I'd wasted almost an hour on this match. I got up from my desk as some ad started playing. The site I used to do back-to-back ads playing after every match. So I got up as the princess begged me to make some puzzle to save her from the bad king, and went to pour myself some orange juice. I left her exclaiming in awe at the multitude of gems I could earn. By the time I got back, the room was quiet. The second ad had started to play, but it had no sound. The screen was much less animated, dark, no sponsored mention, no link lights flickering over a gradient and a pixelated cloaked figure below them. The letters read, "Find the monster in the room." I raised my brows, somewhat amused, as I sat down. It looked interesting compared to the puzzle knockoffs and choice-based games I usually got. It had no skip in 5 button, so I figured I needed to play a little before I could close it. I clicked on the begin button and a pixelated picture of a bedroom popped up. It was a fantasy-like setting with stone walls and a bed with a canopy, a desk, and a round decorated mirror and fancy armoire. Candles threw animated shadows around the room, and tiny pixelated bats flew by. In the corner of the room I could very clearly see a comically drawn vampire, similar to the Hotel Transylvania ones, hunched over. I clicked on him, half smiling, and he disappeared with a poof. A message popped up. "Congratulations, you saved the princess and you found the monster. Continue." Again, no skip button. I went on. The game looked cozy and I liked the style of the animations. "Find the monster in the room." This time the room was a classroom with colourful desks and toys all over. The walls were covered in kids' drawings and the sun shone gently through the blinds. The monster was a tiny gnome with pointy ears, hiding under a desk and grinning. He looked cute, though not scary. I clicked on him and he let out a tiny high-pitched scream before poofing. The next level was a werewolf in a rose garden, then a mummy in a library. It was unskippable, but I didn't mind. I needed a break from getting my ass beat by the chess robots. After maybe 10 levels, I realised it was upping the difficulty. Now the monster would be half hidden, under beds, behind bushes or curtains, or a reflection in a window or a shadow. Soon enough, by level 20, I actually began to struggle to spot it. It started giving me tips. Pay attention to what doesn't belong. Monsters prefer corners. I got stuck at level 25. It showed me a picture of a living room and a little girl and her dad watching TV in the dark. I scanned the whole room but couldn't find anything. I even upped the brightness, thinking it may have been hiding in the shadow. At last I made out the outline of a leg, I think, under the couch, and clicked on it. Wrong flickered in red on the screen. A circle appeared on the dad. This was the monster. He killed the mum and hid her under the couch. You couldn't save the daughter. Lives left. 2 out of 3. I leaned back, surprised. Damn, this game was darker than I thought it would be. I had underestimated it. I clicked continue and it showed a bathroom with a grandma helping a kid get dressed. I looked around and couldn't find anything, so I decided to try my luck and click on the grandma. Wrong. The circle appeared on the vent. I leaned in, squinting, and I saw a pale, bloated face. It looked weirdly realistic compared to the pixelated look of the bathroom. Ew. You couldn't save the boy and his grandmother. Lives left 1 out of 3. I continued. I caught the next monster, a tall, slender figure almost blending in with the trees. The next level, level 28, showed a suburban street, gently lit by warm street lights. No monster in sight. I scanned it as much as I could, but I didn't find anything. I was determined to, though. Must have spent around 10 minutes staring at the screen, but before I finally gave up and clicked randomly. Wrong. A circle appeared in the darkness. You couldn't save the young man. Lives left 0 of 3. Game over. Better luck next time. Tips. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. There was no option to play again. The pop-up closed. I remained a bit unsettled, but I was still pleasantly surprised by the originality of the game and its power to crawl under your skin. I returned to my chess game. Saturday night found me in a different position. I went out with my friends and returned to my one-story house in the suburbs drunk and woozy, walking alone in the peaceful and quiet night, right in the middle of my street. My mind was perfectly empty and the cold night air washed over me like a blessing. One foot in front of the other, I came closer to my house. In the distance, I began to make out a silhouette standing still. I couldn't figure out if it was facing me or away, but it was slightly hunched over and twitching. Nuh-uh, I remember thinking. I may be drunk, but I'm not stupid. I turned left and took a little detour. I arrived at my house safe and sound, even though the feeling of being watched followed me like a stray dog. I left it at my door, and yet it scratched and howled the whole night. Sunday night, chess tournaments again. Bored out of my mind. 2 AM hits and the ad pops up again. I was somehow happy to see it. This time the words read, "Find the monster in the room before it finds you." It picked up from level 29. I had no idea it was saving my progress. The difficulty was easy again, but I had a timer now. As it got harder, the timer became shorter. A subway. I clicked on the pale, wide-eyed man sitting down next to a little girl. Correct. You saved the girl from the predator. Eventually again it got to the point where I had no idea where to click. I lost once, then I lost again. Level 54 showed the front of a one-story house. I scanned every centimetre and found nothing until, in one of the windows, I could see a light, almost like a reflection, a silhouette. Ah, found you. Clicked on it. Wrong. That's the player. This is the monster. A circle appeared on another window. I couldn't see anything in there. As I was squinting into the monitor, I heard a clatter in my kitchen. I jumped in my seat, my breath stuck in my throat. It was ages before I could breathe again. My whole body felt hollowed out. Game over. Better luck next time. Tips: the more you find, the better it hides. Screw this, I said out loud and went into the kitchen to check the source of the clatter. I know what you'll say. Why do people go and check dumb horror movie protagonist behaviour? Well, I can't just sit tight in my room. Find it before it finds you, right? Nothing was in the kitchen. Nothing in any of the rooms. I know it's stupid to look, I know. I slept with the bedroom door closed. I checked the whole house and found nothing. But I remembered the tip. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Crikey. And that is why ad blockers exist. Simple as that. Okay, and our third and final story comes from Saturday, and it's titled, "I must have dinner at exactly 6 PM. It's really bizarre to look back on the past year and consider that there was a time when my life was simple. I have a different life today, and I would argue I'm a different person. I have to eat every night at specifically 6 p.m. If I don't, there are consequences. That doesn't sound all that weird. People eat at 6 p.m. all the time. Some earlier, some later. I can't do that. It has to be exactly 6 p.m. And if I don't, there are consequences. You wouldn't think there'd be, but there is. And yeah, it is as unusual as it sounds. Started about a year ago. My family was taking me out to celebrate finishing my education as a dental technician. I had technically already worked in the field for some time, but now I had it all on paper. I was officially done, and I could get myself a real job. I had a couple places lined up. My mum was really excited about it. She booked a table at a pretty pricey downtown restaurant. You need to book it at least 1 or 2 months in advance, especially if you want a weekend or evening slot. Not only did she do that, she booked it with space to spare. Mum, Dad, my girlfriend Amy, my older brother and my grandparents. One big outing. I was a bit nervous about them meeting Amy. It was their first time, but I figured it would be fine. We got there around 5:30 on a Friday. I'm not going to out the restaurant. I think they're closed now. But it was this nice downtown place, slightly elevated with an outdoor terrace. They had 2 bars and these big booths for parties of up to 8. When we got there, they showed us inside, asked us to take off our shoes and sat us down at the table. First thing they did was go person by person and wash our hands at the table. The appetizer was meant to be eaten with your hands. That was the kind of vibe we were walking into. Just for contrast, I'm not into expensive stuff. The whole reason I got into dentistry at all was because I used to be anxious about tongues. I started reading about them just to kind of demystify them, and then all of a sudden it became an interest. Then I went from tongue to teeth. But food-wise, I'm a ramen noodle kind of guy. I'm not really about the whole washing my hands with eucalyptus water thing. We had a couple drinks, some laughs, some appetizers. They had this big shrimp thing they serve with dry ice that made the whole table look like a cloud. The chef was apparently a big time thing. I think I've seen him on TV a couple of times. Let's just call him Chef Mike for reference. It'd be too easy to identify him if I gave you the real first name. We saw him a couple of times that day. A lot of people running in and out of the kitchen. If you listen closely, you could hear someone yelling in the other room. As the clock closed in on 6 p.m, a waiter put down a plate right next to me. No one else got a plate like that. It was a kind of zesty halibut with haricot, severe, and asparagus foam. When I looked up, I realised I'd been served by Chef Mike himself. For the birthday boy, he smiled. It's not my birthday, I smiled back, but thank you. Part of my assumption, may I ask the occasion? The others at the table chimed in. My grandparents were talking about how inventive I was as a child. My mother straightened her back and started talking about my excellent oral health. Amy was clinging to my arm, a bit overwhelmed about the whole outing. She's not a fan of strangers. Chef Mike just smiled at me. Then you must have a refined palate, he said. Please, it's on the house. A clock chimed in the background. 6 p.m. on the dot. I took a bite. I'm not going to say that halibut was the best thing I've ever had. It wasn't. It was good though. Buttery smooth with just enough texture to stick to your tongue. The foam did a lot of the heavy lifting. It was just a couple of bites, but I really enjoyed it. There wasn't really much more to it. We had a lovely dinner and dessert. Then, as we called it a night, Amy and I took an Uber back to our place. That's when I noticed something curious. Someone had sent me money. $80. Now, it's not a lot of money, but there was no name or note attached to it. I figured it was my parents wanting to give me a little extra to go out with Amy, but I wasn't sure. I jotted up to a miscommunication and sent out a "Hey, thanks for the $80" in the family group chat, but nobody responded. I didn't really think about it. The next day, I was back to slurping up a pack of ramen noodles while doing paperwork. To be a bit extra fancy, I added some fresh bell peppers. I was halfway through an article when I got a notification. $65. No name or note attached. Strange. Not just that I got money again, but that it was a different amount. I sent out another message in the family group chat, thinking maybe my grandparents were the ones who sent it. Maybe they thought the first didn't go through. I could only speculate, but the group chat stayed silent. Over the next few days, I noticed a couple of things. First of all, there were days when I didn't get any money at all. I did get a couple more deposits though, and only on days when I had dinner at exactly 6 p.m. It was the only common denominator. Ramen with bell peppers, I know twice in a week, got me another $65. Fried chicken and rice got me $70. Had some curry sauce and have it again the next day, I got $73. The sums would differ, but I would only get something on the days where I ate at exactly 6 p.m. The thing is, it was fast and consistent. I could be sitting at home, chilling in front of the TV, and I get a notification, but only if I was having dinner at 6 p.m. This brought me to a couple of uncomfortable realizations. First off, the sums would differ depending on what I ate, meaning there was some kind of rating system. And second of all, and maybe more importantly, someone could tell when I was eating. Someone was somehow observing me eat. This triggered all kinds of paranoid responses in me. I would stop eating out of spite. I would bring Amy over and ask her to check outside for someone watching me through the windows. I borrowed a strong magnet from a local magnet fisher to check if I got any bugs on me. All of it turned out nothing. I think the only thing I managed to do was convince Amy that I was getting paranoid. She wasn't too happy about it, but I think that's just because she worries. She's a worrier. One day I decided to test it all further. I locked myself in the bathroom. I turned off the lights and hid behind the shower curtain. I had a microwaved waffle with some vanilla ice cream in a bowl. I took little bites at exactly 6 p.m. and listened for a notification on my phone. My hands were a bit shaky. I was so focused on listening for that sound that every creak and groan of the apartment building sent sparks into my chest. As soon as I finished the bowl, the phone beeped. $45. I couldn't even see my own hands. Unless someone was using infrared or sonar, there's no way they could see or hear what the hell I was doing. Something wasn't adding up. I kept experimenting over the next few days. I tried to test the boundaries of what counted as dinner. Soft foods like drinks and slushies and marmalade didn't count. Neither did snacks like chips or crackers. It had to be something substantial and traditional. I tried going the other way round. I got this really nice cut of beef from a local butcher and asked Amy to help prepare it, seeing as she's a bit more of a cook than I am. She put some real love into that thing, using a sort of truffle glaze and serving it with roasted potatoes. I sat down at this little table. I had a heated cloth napkin, a glass of red wine, and ate by candlelight. Once I finished, I checked my phone. $1,200. This wasn't just a creepy experiment anymore. This was real money. Rent money. Amy freaked out when I showed her dancing around the kitchen like she'd won the lottery. Tomorrow I'll make homemade chia batter and a chili, she said. If this is what one steak gets us, what'll a 3-course meal do? But where's it coming from? I asked. Why are we getting it? Why don't you just ask? If there's someone watching, then clearly they're listening. She had a point. Amy had some last-minute business to deal with the next day, so I ended up making some hot dogs and mashed potatoes. Nothing fancy at all, just the powdered stuff right out of the box. But as I sat down, I had an idea. I took a bite and spoke into the empty room. If you can hear me, add 50 cents to the next deposit. I'd never gotten anything less than $4, so yeah, that was to catch my attention. I tried watching a show as I ate, but I kept getting this pounding in my chest whenever I thought about being watched. What was the point in watching me eat? And why at 6 p.m? I finished my meal and put the plate away. As I turned on the dishwasher, my phone chimed. $21.50. Someone was listening. Testing this further just made it stranger. I had some Indian takeout food on the bus and I still got a deposit. It was still watching me when I was on the move, as long as I had a proper meal. I tried dragging dinner out for 2 hours. I still got a deposit, but much less than usual. I could be eating alone or with friends or at a restaurant. It didn't matter. Someone knew what I was doing and they were grading it on a scale. I started asking questions, 50 cents for yes, 25 cents for no. I already knew they could hear me, so that was already settled. Can you see me? 50 cents, yes. Do I know you? 25 cents, no. Do you want to hurt me? 25 cents, no. I was so fascinated that it started taking up a lot of time. I would make charts and weigh my options and what to ask. We quickly realised that it didn't work if Amy asked. It had to be me. But when asked if it knew that Amy was there, I got a very clear yes. I started to notice a couple of patterns in the payments. Home-cooked meals regularly got bigger deposits. Also eating alone. White wine was a big no-no, but red wine was a yes, especially if chilled. I was slowly mapping another person's palate, and I have to admit it was pretty amazing. A little more salt, another $5, a little less butter, that's another $3. All the while I was asking questions. Whoever was watching me had a hard time answering what or who they were. We had to narrow it down to what they weren't. They were not a regular person, not a demon or mythical creature, not an alien. I couldn't get a clear enough answer, but I managed to understand they used to be a person. Not a ghost though, they were clear about that. 25 cents clear. I came up with this system of multiple choice answers. I would write up answer sheets with increments of 10 cents each. That's how I figured out where they were from. The first day I asked what continent they lived on. I got 30 cents correlating with my North America answer. The next day it pointed me to the United States. Makes sense. That's where I am. The third day I asked them to write out the first letter of the state code. I got 19 cents meaning S. The next day I got 4 cents meaning D. SD, South Dakota, pretty far away. I tried to narrow down exactly where they were at, but after a while they stopped answering. Turns out they didn't know for sure. It was east of the river, that much I figured out. So I got the impression that whoever I was communicating with wasn't entirely sure either. Some days the question I asked took longer to respond to, and there'd be a delay before I got the deposit. All the while I was raking in some pretty good money. I was averaging $150 a day, just from sticking to this dinner schedule. Amy didn't ask too many questions. We could really use the money if we wanted to get a bigger place. But I had to start asking some uncomfortable questions. I couldn't get over what kind of deal I was actually making. Why would someone go to such lengths just to have me follow a strict schedule? And it was then, after almost 2 months, that I got a visitor. It was a regular Tuesday. I had just started my new job just a couple of weeks prior, so I was more tired than usual when I got home from work. All the tension of getting to know a new workplace just collapsed from my shoulders. Amy was working overtime, but she prepared a recipe for me to make to ensure we got the most of our daily mystery deposit. But that's when I got a knock at the door. Now I get visitors every now and then. My parents, friends, Amy's friends. But this was someone I hadn't seen at my door before. Looking through the peephole, I realised I was looking at none other than our local celebrity chef, Chef Mike. I opened the door, scratching my head. "Hey," he said, "remember me?" "Yeah, sure," I replied. "What are you doing here?" "Have you been getting the payments?" "You know about them?" "Yeah," he nodded. "I get them sometimes too. I just gotta cook the right thing." I invited him in and we got to chatting. Chef Mike told me all about the setup. About once a week he got a deposit if he served that halibut dish to someone. They didn't have to order it, he would pay for it. It just had to be prepared in a certain way and offered at a certain time and date. Chef Mike explained it. He wandered around my kitchen, making sure to not touch the counter. It was kind of filthy. Amy doesn't really do dishes and I'm much for scrubbing. Chef Mike gave me a long look. "I stopped getting payments after you came by. I think our benefactor is taking a liking to you." "Benefactor? Is that what it is?" "I honestly don't know," he shrugged. "But whatever it is, it kick-started my career. I've made some serious money with this arrangement. Just from cooking halibut. It's not just cooking a halibut, it's cooking it to perfection. It's cooking it over a process that has taken me years to calibrate. No one else can do it. It's unique." He pointed a finger at me. I sat down. Chef Mike had come by to cook me dinner. He wasn't getting payments for halibut anymore, so he figured the benefactor had taken a liking to me. He wanted to try cooking for me to see if it paid off. It sounded almost threatening, like he wasn't asking. He wanted me to agree to him coming by 2 times per week, cooking things he knew would get us a lot of money. I wouldn't have to send him anything. He got deposits of his own. Somehow our benefactor knew that not only was I having dinner at that exact time, but he also knew exactly who prepared it. I mean, what could I say? I was getting paid to enjoy a gourmet meal 2 times a week. How can that be a bad thing? I wasn't being tricked here. I saw the whole thing from start to finish. No matter if he made a paella or a chicken frittata, I'd see the whole thing, no tricks. So yeah, I agreed. Amy would have killed me if I didn't. She got all the leftovers she wanted. That, and she was a bit of a closeted Chef Mike fan. She followed his YouTube channel. Things changed rapidly after Chef Mike and I shook hands on the deal. He got all new kitchenware for me and had a firm come by to clean. He put in this new hood over the stove and put seriously, I can't count how many unnamed people came and went through my kitchen during those days. Some didn't even look like chefs, more like mercenaries. Deposits kicked up significantly. My max payout was somewhere around $3,200. It never dipped below 300. Still, having him around was nerve-wracking. He had an absolutely awful temper and he would blow up at Amy all the time. She would just be excited to have him there and he would cuss her out for staring. It was heartbreaking watching her go from all excited to withdrawn. After a while she'd avoid coming out at all on days when he was there. All the while I was still trying to understand our benefactor. I asked him to spell out his name, but all I got was an N and O. 14 and 15 cents. Then I decided I had to ask some big questions. Something that would take a long time to answer, but that I had to know. Despite knowing it might take weeks to get the full picture, I painstakingly made a schedule to ask a question I couldn't stop thinking about. How can you see me? It took 8 days to get a complete answer. Every day I checked the deposit and the corresponding number of cents. I put up one post-it a day until the answer was staring at me. 21, 18, 5, 25, 5, 19. Your eyes. Your eyes. I tried eating with my eyes closed, but that didn't seem to affect it at all. That confused me. Even if this thing could somehow experience things through my eyes, that didn't explain why it wanted me to eat. I started getting strange messages not related to the questions I asked. Letters that wasn't a response to anything I asked. I could ask a yes or no question and get 4 cents, a D. Over the weeks that followed, I filled my fridge with all kinds of strange messages, all written on colourful post-its. Good taste, best tongue, more salt. Chef Mike shared that he was getting messages too, but he hadn't figured out they had a meaning yet. It was only when I pointed out that he realised he had started getting scents. He hadn't gotten those before. He wrote out all the scents he'd received in a number sequence and had me translate it while he cooked. This one says can't see, I said, pointing to a series of post-its. This other one says can't touch. So he can't touch and can't see. And he lives in South Dakota. And he sees things with other people's eyes. Chef Mike shuddered. He didn't like that. Amy was standing quiet in the corner, keeping her head down. He says I have a good tongue. The best, I added. What do you think that means? Well, Chef Mike sighed. Over the years I've worked with him, he made me perfect that one halibut dish as a sort of calibration. Maybe he was looking for someone to enjoy it the right way. But how does he know that I do that? He shrugged. See through your eyes, taste through your tongue. Taking all I'd learned into account, I decided to dive deeper into another question. Why specifically at 6 p.m? Why was that so important? The answer I got was as simple as it was infuriating. Dinner. I asked what happened before that and why it couldn't be 5 p.m. Gym. The benefactor had a schedule. Work, gym, dinner, woman, sleep. I got this impression of someone living vicariously through others. Maybe literally. How else can you explain someone knowing I'm eating strawberries and cream in the dark, and not just flushing them down the toilet? I shared my findings with Amy, all the post-its, the talks with Chef Mike, the experiments, the questions. I showed her my conclusions and suspicions, drawing it out on my iPad like I was mapping a conspiracy theory. Red lines from one circle to another, dates, answers. I'd printed out pages of deposits and highlighted every cent, just in case I checked if the full dollar amount was anything, too. It wasn't. And that rating, it was getting intricate. The benefactor had a very particular palate. It enjoyed beef the most, well done surprisingly. Grilled was a no-go, but it enjoyed the barbecue and various glazes. There was a little upshoot whenever I had a pleasant appetizer, and even more if I finished with the dessert. Chef Mike managed to break the record with a $4,100 deposit after serving me a 4-course meal. But man, it was awkward. I was just sitting there savouring it, while Amy watched from the other side of the room. I could tell she was having second thoughts about this entire thing. I couldn't blame her, but we were talking about big money now. This was daily income in the potential thousands. Finally, at one point, she just flat out asked me about all of it. We were driving home from the grocery store and she had me pull over. It was almost dinner time. We got unstuck in traffic. I was a bit stressed, but I did as she asked. She put her hand on my shoulder. I think we should stop, she said. We got so much from this. There's got to be a problem with it. I don't feel comfortable doing this. It's a lot of money, I agreed. But can we afford to stop? She nodded. We got a lot, I know, and we can put that to good use, but when's enough enough? Didn't you want to be a dental technician? I am a dental technician, I insisted. You spend more time on your charts and recipes, she said. That's all your time. It's income in the thousands, Amy. Thousands. And what did they get from you that's worth that kind of money? I didn't have an answer. My tongue felt dry. The clock was almost 6 p.m. I leaned back and smacked my seat. Amy recoiled a little and I reached out to apologize. We were okay. It was just a lot. And I mean, yeah, she was right. I was being paid for something I didn't understand. And it was a lot of money. If I can't understand it, how can I consent to it? I decided to swallow my pride and agree with her. So that day I skipped dinner. And for the next week, I kept that up. It was a bit strange, stepping away from a strict schedule when Chef Mike wasn't happy about it. He went back to making that halibut dish, looking for someone new to appease the benefactor. I would get these occasional messages like no one yet, and are you still out? The message that stuck with me the most was just, do you know how lucky you are? I stopped responding after a while. Amy was doing a lot better. We started eating together again, and we could be a bit more spontaneous. It was a load off my shoulders, but I would still catch myself wondering at times. Whenever 6 p.m. rolled around, was something looking through my eyes still? Was it tasting my tongue? And it moved on. There were no more deposits. It sucked not to have that income, but it was a strange thing to rely on to begin with. And I won't lie, it was convenient to sell, but there's something uncomfortable to it. I can't put my finger on it. But after 2 weeks of stepping away from the deal, something changed. I lost my job. I'm not saying that I was the perfect employee, but I was doing a lot better now that I didn't have any distractions. It came out of nowhere. There was no mass layoffs or anything. It was just me. And on the same day as some nameless security goon is carrying my stuff to the car, I get a text from Amy. She lost her job too. All of a sudden that income is looking like a lifesaver. But I couldn't help but think, what if that's the point? What if this was orchestrated? How far can this benefactor reach. That night Amy went to see her sister. The two of them are really close and she needed some alone time. Meanwhile I made some spaghetti and meatballs and I sat down to eat at exactly 6 p.m. I remember sitting there at the kitchen table, eating in silence, looking at my iPad across the table. I'd written a question. Did you get us fired? 50 cents yes. 25 cents no. Every bite felt wrong, like someone was watching me from inside my mouth. Like there was someone else sitting in the same space as my body, savouring me like a goddamn juice box. Felt like I was putting on a show, making myself into a canvas to be painted on. But I finished the meal. There was a deposit later that night. $480.50. That's a yes. It got us fired. I didn't tell Amy about it. She thought we'd gotten away from that whole ordeal, and now was threatening to pull us back in. I wanted to give her some peace of mind, so I decided I was going to do something about it. I had a plan to get this benefactor out of our lives once and for all. One evening while she was out, I sat down at 6 p.m. with a new plan. I was going to make the benefactor turn away from me forever, and I could only see one way of doing that. I'd lined up a plate with orange juice, toothpaste, diced onions and mayonnaise. That and a spoon. I'd prepared an empty bucket next to me. My heart was making backflips as the clock crossed over to 6 p.m. When it did, I dug in and ate until I couldn't eat anymore. I ate, and I got violently ill. There were no deposits that night. For a few days it seemed to work. I could eat at 6 p.m. without getting a deposit. It actually lightened my mood a lot. I didn't feel watched anymore. I think Amy noticed it too, and she seemed a bit more at ease. Dinner time had become this unspoken stigma between us, but we'd started to look past it. We could joke about it, plan a little outing. We might even have dinner at 6 p.m. We moved back into a better routine. I took down the post-it from the fridge. I deleted the document with all my findings. I'll admit I wasn't sure about that one. There's no harm in keeping a file on your computer. But then again, if I wanted to fully commit, I couldn't keep that stuff around. After much deliberation, I cleared it out. Things were looking up. I got a new job interview. Amy and I were looking at bigger apartments, hoping to find something within our price range. Not for now, but for when we both got back on our feet. But things don't always turn out like you want. It was the middle of the afternoon and I'd spent my day talking to some old classmates. I was waiting for a response from a recruiter who'd shown some interest. I got out of my car at around 4 p.m. bringing some groceries along. The front door was open, so I figured Amy was at home. I did what I always did, I spoke out loud about my day. Mark got a new job, I said. Sounds like it wasn't just me that's been laid off. No response. I got some turkey breast. I figured we could make some. I looked down at my grocery bag. Turns out someone had switched it. This wasn't what I'd bought. But for that to happen, they must have been in my car while I checked my phone. Looking up, there was a man in my living room. He was about 6'3", slim shoulders, thick horn, rimmed glasses, buzz cut, grey dress coat, simple blue jeans. Something in my blood froze when I saw him. I think I've seen him at Chef Mike's place. It was like coming face to face with a lion. All kinds of strange details just burned into my head. The way he laced his shoe, the silver ring on his left index finger, the slight hint of a scar on his neck, the tinted blue sunflower on the commercial rolling in the background. We just stared at each other for a second. I counted my breaths, trying to keep my brain from spiraling. I was making 100 plans at once and they were all incomplete. Run, scream, shout, talk. Why aren't I talking? Do something. He burst into a sprint. I dropped my groceries and got about 5 steps before he caught my neck and pushed me down. I felt something cold, metallic, and heavy push against the back of my skull. Not a word he said. Not a single goddamn word. The world turns black with a blindfold. I tried to listen for details, count my steps. There were more people and they were trying to disorient me. They put a hood over my head and spun me around, pushing me to the ground a couple of times. I couldn't figure out the direction we were going. They threw me into a car, a big one by the sound of it. No one was talking, but I figured they were at least 3 people. 2 up front, 1 in the back. The car ride was over 40 minutes, but we took a lot of turns. We might have been going in circles for a while. Once we came to a stop, they pulled me out and kept driving. I never even saw the car. Still not a word from either of them. I was pulled inside a building and escorted down some stairs. A cellar. I was pushed into a cheap chair that scraped against an uneven stone floor. There was a voice. Time. 4:48. Clear out. People left the room. Another chair squeaked as someone sat down across from me. They leaned in, making sure the chains in my hand were secured to the table. Let me tell you about my job. The silence was unbearable. I could barely hear him over my own breathing. I've had a job for 6 years, he said. Best job I've ever had. Before this, I was ready to bite a bullet. I had no purpose, no income, nothing. He tapped something against my head. Then one day a man walks past me, and I look at him a little longer than I usually do. He looks weird, as I feel to him, and all of a sudden, I get $20. Just like that. So you know what I do. He leans in. I look a little closer. I follow him a little longer. Another $20. And you know what I find? This guy's a freak. He does some things that grown men ain't supposed to do. Things that hurt people, good people. He leans back. Something metallic lands on the table. So instead of turning the gun on myself, I turn it on him. And I shit you not, 10 minutes later I'm looking at a 5-figure payout out of goddamn nowhere. He taps the heavy object with his fingertips, spins it a little. Now I got a job, a very serious job, and I've learned to listen very, very well. And I don't ask questions. We sat there for a full hour. He had a wall clock that made this needlessly loud ticking noise so I wouldn't forget the seconds. I tried to calm my nerves and settle my breathing, but he would do something to constantly keep me on edge. I lost track of time completely after a while and he was more than patient. Someone knocked on a door upstairs. A heavy door, metal, reinforced, and the man got up from his chair. "That's your cue," he said. "It's showtime." I instantly recognized the voice as the door creaks open. Amy. They drag her down in chains, kicking and screaming. She yells my name. Not that I can do anything. It's like reaching for a teddy bear. She's just screaming to get the fear out, and it aches in me not to be able to do anything. The man, has a gun. Something small clinks onto the table in front of me when he pulls off the blindfold. I'm sitting in a dark basement. There are 8 men in the room, all armed with submachine guns. They've chained Amy to the wall. They got her purse tangled up, so they cut the strap off with a bowie knife. They're all masked. Black masks, carbon fibre with felt over the eyes. They have different skin tones and build. No visible tattoos. There are 6 plates in front of me. A bacon and water chestnut appetizer, Caesar salad with a mild cheese, lightly fried halibut with hollandaise sauce and collard greens, rice balls with spicy mayonnaise served with a steak tenderloin, a turkey burger slider and a small cup of chocolate lava cake for dessert, 3 perfectly placed glasses of red wine, water and white wine. Amy is screaming herself to death. I can hear her voice breaking. I realise one of the men are behind me and he's holding something. I can hear a leather strap just inches from the back of my head. He's pointing something at me. Once the clock turns to 6 p.m, one of the men nod at me. Bon appetit. I take my time with the dishes. I don't want to give them an excuse to shoot me in the back of the head. It all tastes like salt anyway. I must have bitten my tongue when they attacked me. The wine burns my tongue and my eyes water. A little blood drizzles out of the corner of my lips. Amy is a mess. She's on her knees repeating please over and over like a mantra. She's terrified of strangers and the claustrophobia isn't helping. No one is budging. They're not even looking at her. I take bite after bite, knowing full well that I'm being looked at from the inside out. He can taste the salt on my tongue. He can feel the pieces sliding down my gullet. He can feel my nervous stomach rumbling as I force myself to chew, chew, chew. How can he want this? One of the men checks their watch. Send the chef home. Have our guest finish in 10 minutes or kill the girl. Make it a challenge. The man standing behind me huffs, grabs my head and smashes it into the table. The table cracks a little. Cheap plastic probably stolen from a yard. He doesn't have a gun, he has some kind of pop rivet. He's not killing me. He's going to hurt me. Bad. It takes me a moment to register the pain. He pulls out my tongue and pierces it with a rivet. Start the clock. I can't feel my tongue. My eyes water. I try to eat without chewing, but the salts feel like sticking my mouth into a wall socket. I bite, chew and swallow. Bite, chew, swallow. I'm a machine. I'm doing this. Pain doesn't kill you, but by God it's the worst I've ever felt. It's supposed to be good. It smells nice, but it sticks to my stomach, lining like a sore cold. They're gonna kill her. I can see the gun. They're gonna kill her. I finish with a couple of minutes to spare. I almost choke on the white wine. I knocked over a couple of plates and it looked like someone fed it all to a starving dog. I barbecue glaze on my fingers. Hands are faster than forks. Looks good, one of them said. Hope you enjoyed your meal. Another one leaned in from behind, tapping me on my shoulder with an automatic weapon. What time are you having dinner tomorrow? He asked. It wasn't really a question. It would never be a question again. 6 p.m. I got $25. No cents. I still have my dinner at 6 p.m. to this day. I'd like to say Amy and I have found some kind of normalcy in all of this, but she turns pale every time I walk away to eat. We don't talk about it. We talk about everything but that. I've started getting deposits again. as big as I used to, but still significant. I've noticed I get a bit more if Amy is in the room watching in silence. I've tried thinking about it in other ways, like I'm not a captive in my own body, but maybe an influencer to an audience of one, or a curator, a reviewer. Maybe there's some magical thing I can do that will grant me some kind of lenience. I don't know. But for now I don't have any options. Every day I step away from whatever I'm doing and I have dinner. And I have it at exactly 6 p.m. Blimey. I was like fully invested in that. Like, I feel like I say this quite a lot, but with that one, this particularly applies. How on earth do people come up with this? Like, what on earth? Some people's minds are just absolutely mental. That was. I mean, I feel like I've been left wanting more as well. Like, I want to know how that happens. But equally, if a demon fancies, reaching out to me and, putting me in that position, I'd be all for it. I could eat at the same time every day, and if I've got to eat gourmet food for the rest of my life at 6 p.m, then that's absolutely fine. But that was, certainly a properly riveting, intriguing story. And that's that. I really hope you did enjoy this video, everybody.